Will Bunch wrote an article saying, Democrats are practicing political malpractice if they do not capitalize on the relationship that Republicans and conservatives have taken with Russia over these years, particularly in this instance where we are watching this just utter brutality by Putin in bombing civilians. Here is Tucker Carlson, who just literally a week ago, was it?
Yeah.
7 days ago, was like laughing. Why should I care? Maybe it was 8 days ago, 10 days.
I mean, we covered it.
Why should I care about it?
On Thursday, he said, why should I hate Putin? Has he called me a racist? Has he got me canceled? Has he sold me fentanyl? Did he create a pandemic? Like he went through a list of things, basically, of grievances from the right that you can't attribute to Putin. And my sense is like, it did not poll well, the fact that there were Republicans siding with Putin on this. And there's a very coordinated walk back happening right now.
And here is part of that walk back from last night.
Even spinning out of control. And that, we must be honest, is shocking to us. We've been taken by surprise by the whole thing. We're not the only ones who were, but we're willing to admit it. The only thing more embarrassing.
Pause it for 1 second. Go back to the beginning. And the idea that when he's got an apology to make, he goes into the royal we. As if he's like, the slight implication is that this is really the fault of my producers, but I'm also going to take some of the responsibility. Go ahead.
Even spinning out of control. And that, we must be honest, is shocking to us. We've been taken by surprise by the whole thing. We're not the only ones who were, but we're willing to admit it. The only thing more embarrassing than being wrong in your estimates is pretending that you weren't. So why didn't we see this coming, this total loss of control? Well, because we assumed that if things were dire, serious people would be involved in fixing them. But we looked up and we saw Kamala Harris involved, and that reassured us. Harris had just come back from Europe, where she'd been conducting, quote, diplomacy with her allies. And that appeared to be proof this could not really be a big deal. The situation in Ukraine had been legitimately serious. If the future of Europe and the world hung in the balance, as now so obviously it does, of course, the Biden administration would not have sent Kamala Harris to fix it, because that's not her job. Kamala Harris's job is to trot down to the Blue Room periodically to greet delegations of TikTok influencers, or to cut occasional PSAs for the Children's Dental Health Awareness Month, which is in February, so we assumed she'd be working on that right now. But averting war with Russia, saving the civilized world, come on. That is absolutely not Kamala Harris's job. That was our assumption. But as noted, we were wrong. Why were we wrong? Well, we spend a lot of time watching Kamala Harris. You probably don't. Unless you are a junior producer at MSNBC, you're probably not that familiar with Kamala Harris. We should say, by the way, we didn't underestimate Vladimir Putin. We overestimated Joe Biden. But we
that is the most tortured sort of like attempt revisionist history. I mean, the reason why we were completely wrong about the Russians and Vladimir Putin, even though, and we should say, Tucker Carlson has been attempting for years, multiple years, to get an interview with Vladimir Putin, presumably paying attention to Vladimir Putin.
In 2019, he said, why shouldn't I root for Russia? I am rooting for Russia. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that was it, or that was the quote, mostly.
And who is it that he would like to have been sent? Like the idea that Kamala Harris was the only person being sent, like all of the top negotiators were sent to. It's just that we sent the person first in line to be president after Joe Biden to go to basically, even if you want to just call it like, I mean, she's not sitting down at the table doing the negotiations. That's not the way it works. He knows this. It is such a tortured attempt to divert. And he's just like literally looking around for the first black person he could blame for them not for all the time he spent cheerleading Putin. And here's the other thing too, is that Tucker Carlson spent a lot of time on his show back in the early aughts on Crossfire promoting the Iraq war, even though he was essentially going on radio shortly after that to say there's just the Iraqis are just some backwards, uncivilized monkeys. And he didn't care about, the death and destruction that's happening there. And make no mistake, he doesn't care about the death and destruction that's happening in Ukraine either. He just knows it's not selling well. And so he had to have J.D. Vance on to help J.D. Vance's flagging campaign, because J.D. Vance is running for Senate in Ohio, where it turns out there's tens of thousands of Ukrainian Americans. Probably also take a little issue with the fact that J.D. Vance is like, why should we care at all at this bombing of that's taking place? And so this is Tucker Carlson, and he will get away with it from his audience, without a doubt.
To be fair, Sam, I mean, Tucker Carlson is just extrapolating his white supremacy onto foreign policy here, because he's essentially using the one drop rule to delegitimize the Biden administration, just because Kamala Harris was one of the people involved in or just being there by her presence. That pollutes the entire well. And so that means the entire Biden negotiation effort with Russia is illegitimate and unserious. That's what he's saying. He's completely Blinken. Yeah, he was off doing something else, I would guess. Or, he's pretending like she is the big bad in this instance. But I mean, that's part of what their effort is too. They see her as a vulnerable person to attack. So they're working backwards from that.
Do you think that they, in their producer's room before the show, they're like, we've got to do this. We got to do this turnaround on our lack, our support for Russia and our lack of support for Ukraine. Ketanji Brown Jackson, is there any way that we can blame her? What about Kaepernick? Is he in the news? Is there any way that we got distracted by Kaepernick and that's why we had too much faith in Putin? Or what? Who can we? Is there somebody? AOC? Could we? Kamala Harris. Yeah, of course. That's what it will be. That's perfect. Great job. Promotion for you. And you can tell those people at Stormfront too. We're using your tip for this today. That's what the producer meeting.
Thanks for the help, the 4chan Stormfront fan.
Exactly.